Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Hope City. My name is Peter. I'm the pastor here. It's glad to be here. It's such a privilege for me to be here with you guys this morning. Whether this is your first Sunday at Hope City Church or maybe it's your first time in a long time, we're glad that you're here. This morning, we've been starting way ahead of you. We got here at 6:30 this morning just to prepare this space so that you and I, your friends, we can all gather together and have meaningful connection with one another, but also meaningfully connect with God. And so we're in the midst of a series. We're just kicking this series off today because we believe that. We think that God wants to connect with us just as we should be connecting with Him, but also we need to be able to connect with one another. And so we've called this series White Noise. And I hope that as we navigate over these next 4 weeks, that we will navigate through the white noise that's in your life and in my life together. Do you guys know what white noise is, though, officially, what that is, outside of what Kevin said and what may be waiting for you in your bedroom right now? But white noise looks a little bit something like this. White noise is actually, scientifically, white noise is just every frequency under the sun just all mashed up. And then you turn that machine on, or if you're like me, you have it on every app, every device possible. It's on my iPhone, it's on an iPad, because you never know. You never know when you need to tune out everything around you, right? But the inverse is true. You and I, we live in a world that is so incredibly noisy that it becomes difficult to focus on other people. Let's say that right now, there's two of us that are just talking. In fact, it's just me talking right now. And feel free to kick in at any time. That would be weird. Don't do that. But so if it's just me talking, you have no problem listening, no problem paying attention for any length of time, right? But when there starts to be 2 or 3 more other people talking in the room, it becomes a little bit harder to focus on what one person is saying. Now, if we add in 6 or 7 people, or 100 people, and actually even 1,000 people, right? Go to Times Square. There is so much noise going around you that it's actually hard to pinpoint what somebody else is saying. It's hard to pay attention and to actually hear what that other person is saying. That's the idea behind white noise. Your brain is actually simultaneously listening to all of these different things, all of these different environments, and it's trying to pick out and interpret what is being said, what the most important thing that's being said. Can we agree, though, that we live in a very noisy world? Like this, yeah, I think we can, because this picture here, gives us a glimpse of your world and of mine, right? Like we've got our cell phones available at any time, right? Like I probably should actually put mine over here for now, just in case any of you wise guys decide to text me. But that we get notifications, we're getting Messenger, we're getting dings and alarms and alerts all from our cell phone. And scientists have actually identified a new symptom that we have. It's only my parents never would have had this. It's only this generation. It's only our time period ever. It's called phantom vibration. Your phone could be over there, and at some point in time, my thigh will feel like my phone just vibrated. And it's because I'm afraid of missing out. Like, what if somebody was trying to get a hold of me? It's a phantom vibration, right? And so then we get in the car, and we have every opportunity in the car under the sun to fill our ears with noise, all kinds of noise. And of course, whether you keep an analog schedule or a digital schedule, your schedule is driving so much noise in your place as well. See, we live in a place of hurry like no other generation has ever experienced before. We hurry from one thing to the next thing, from one event to another event, and it just fills our life with noise. The question I have this morning, and kind of an overarching question for this entire series, is have we become so accustomed to noise that silence is a stranger? Have we become so accustomed to noise, we've just filled our eardrums with noise that maybe even a deeper question is that we need to wrestle with is, are we so entangled with external noise that we can no longer hear some of our deepest internal needs? See, I'm a noise junkie. I'll be the first person to admit it. I love audio. I love music. I've got podcasts on my phone. Like I could listen to podcasts from now until next Sunday, and I wouldn't get through them all the things that are in the podcast library. I've got Apple Music, so then I can listen to anything under the sun, right? Anything that was ever recorded and produced. And even Audible. I can have an author read their book to me because just in case I need to hear something, I've got all of these things at my disposal. Now, I know I love good music. And none of this like country stuff that you guys are importing down here, like all of this, I make sure to keep Darius Rucker out of my ears, right? Like get all that stuff out of here. That's, come on. But I know this about myself. I know that I can fill my ears with noise all the time. I could go from one space to the next space to the next space and never, ever sit in any amount of silence. And I know that I have to intentionally dial it back. I need to ratchet back the decibels in my own life so that I can kind of sit still for a little bit. See, when it gets too loud, I get distracted, and I can easily miss out on what the people around me are saying. See, this week, actually, Tiffany was trying to communicate with me. We were in our family room, and I had my phone out. I was kind of scrolling through Instagram, very impressed with everything that you guys were eating that day. And she was talking, and the kids were in the other room kind of carrying on, doing what kids do. And the TV happened to have been on because Hurricane Florence is coming, and we were like, we have to see what devastation is going to happen in the Carolinas. And so you've got like Jim Cantori, the kids, Instagram, and Tiffany's over here sitting there trying to communicate with me. And she knows that words are being said, but communication isn't happening, right? So she knows that's happening. And she does one of these. She pulls like that professor move, right, where she just stops. I can wait. And you look up and you're scrolling and like you realize it's silent all of a sudden. You're like, you got like the death stare, right? And see, I could hear her voice. I could hear her voice over here. But I knew I wasn't hearing her words. The room had essentially been filled with white noise. I wonder at the outset of this series, I wonder if there is a space in your world, if there are decisions that you and I have made where we are so filled with white noise that we can't even hear the people around us, let alone what God has to say for your life and for mine. If we fill our lives with so much, I wonder, are we missing out on the whispers that God is saying, the things that he wants us to hear? See, one of the decisions that you and I have to focus on is what will we tune our ears to? Proverbs has this fantastic phrase, this verse in Proverbs 14:15. And it says this: the naive believes everything, but the prudent man or the prudent woman considers his or her steps. The naive just believe anything, but the prudent individual considers their steps or makes a decision, makes an informed decision, makes the best decision that they possibly can. What kinds of decisions? Well, over the course of this series, we're going to talk about 4 unique decisions that you and I have to wrestle with. We have to decide if we're going to remove some white noise, in order to declutter our lives a little bit so that we can hear what's most important around us, that we can hear from the people that we love and we care about, that we can hear and take steps in our journey of faith, right? Faith is a journey, not a guilt trip. And we want to be able to hear those next steps. See, the naive believes anything, but the prudent considers his steps. See, one of the things that we know to be true is that you and I make decisions, and then our decisions make us. We make a decision, and maybe it's like signing your kids up for some sport. And then that schedule makes the decisions for you. From then on out, you know what's coming because you made the decision to sign up. You make a decision to kind of take one career path, and then it makes the decisions for you. This is why our decisions are so important. 4 decisions that we want to focus on. We want to focus on the decision between surrender and control. We're going to talk about what it means to surrender versus take control. Another thing we want to talk about is discipline versus regret. What would it look like for us to have discipline versus living a life of regret? Another one, I don't know if this one is at all applies to your world like it does to mine, but what about the decision between the important and the urgent? What about what is so important? It has to get done. And then something urgent kind of waves its hand and say, hey, look over me, look over me, look over here, right? But today, I think we're going to talk about one of the most important decisions, one of those decisions that impacts your world, that shapes your decision-making more than just about anything else, and that is the decision between purpose and popularity. The decision between purpose and and our desire for popularity. See, popularity actually drives so many of your decisions, so many of my decisions. It's from what we wear, what we listen to, even what we eat, what we do. Like, all of these things are being driven by other people. What does other people think about this? What do you think about what I'm about to do, right? These interactions are driven by questions like, what about what I do, what I say, will cause you to like me more? Or who are my friends, and where do I go to school, and what clothes do I wear? What about the car that I drive? And all of these things combined begin to shape our life because we're chasing after the approval of people. And you need to understand something, that living for the approval of people always keeps you from the purposes of God. When you and I try and live after chasing other people's approval, it always throws a roadblock in chasing the purposes that God has for your life. Our desire for popularity can actually drown out the voice of God. It can raise up so many other frequencies that it's just as if you turned on a white noise app. And God is He's just one of those many, many frequencies in your life. It's possible to miss out on living a life of true fulfillment simply because we're trying to fulfill ourselves with other things that would make us feel incredibly popular. This morning, I want to invite you to look with me at a story of a man that is well known by many of you. In fact, there's a guy by the name of Moses. Let me introduce you to Moses, a man who made history, right? Like, you could probably tell me a bit of Moses' story. He made history. He's got the 10 Commandments that were given to him from God. And maybe some of us would say, that was Moses' moment, right? That's that guy's moment. But this incredible decision to go up on a mountain and hear from the Lord and come down with these 10 Commandments actually was made possible only because of another decision that he made earlier on. In fact, Moses had to kind of strip away some of the white noise in his life before he could ever get to this moment. Let me remind you of who Moses was, though. Moses was a Hebrew boy that was born into slavery in Egypt, in Pharaoh's Egypt. And he was raised by Egyptian royalty. His mom and dad put him in a basket and floated him down the river, and he kind of lodged in some reeds. And Pharaoh's daughter came and saw this little baby and adopted this baby into royalty. So it is safe to say that Moses didn't want for anything when he was growing up, that he had a pretty good childhood, right? Like, Moses could go into Pharaoh's, everywhere in his palace, and he could have just about anything that this little kid could want. And yet, Moses came to this moment. Moses came to a moment. Look with me in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 24. It's page 823 on the Bibles around you. You can click over in your YouVersion app and follow and see what Moses did, because Moses had to decide. He had to make a decision as he's wading through the white noise in his own world. He had to make a decision. What was more important? Was it going to be comfort or calling? Was it going to be popularity or purpose? Because God had him in a place that he wanted to do some incredible things with him. And he had to make a decision. He had to weed through the white noise. Look with me. Before Moses could accomplish the purposes of God, he had to deal with the white noise of popularity. In verse 24, it says this: by faith, Moses, when he had grown up, refused to be known as the son of Pharaoh's daughter. He chose to be mistreated along with the people of God rather than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a short time. He regarded disgrace for the sake of Christ as of greater value than the treasures of Egypt, because he was looking ahead to his reward. What I love about this is, right out of the gate, it says, Moses, when he had grown up. When Moses sort of came to a place of maturity, when he had stepped into that place where he was going to make decisions for himself, he had to decide who he was going to be. And right out of the gate, some of us just need to grow up a little bit, right? It isn't my job to make everybody here feel great. It is my job to help all of us here continue to grow up. And some of us, we need to grow up. We need to step beyond some of this popularity stuff. Just like Moses, when he had grown up, he refused to be known as the son of Pharaoh's daughter. Why? Because he chose to be mistreated along with the people of God rather than just enjoying everything that he had at his disposal. Moses made a decision. He left the ranks of the palace in order to pursue the people of God. He left what behind so that he could, chase off into the distance and see what God had in front of him, his purpose to live that out. See, we've already said that living for the approval of people keeps you from the purposes of God. And Moses knew that. He made this decision. In verse 27, it says this, he chose to be mistreated along with the people of God rather than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a short time. Moses made a decision. He had to dial down the white noise in his world in order to hear what God wanted for his life. He had to step out. He had to kind of walk away from the palace and all the food and the lavish lifestyle there in order to chase after his purpose. And this is one of the first things that we learn here from Moses, is that purpose always diminishes distractions. When you and I can understand what your purpose is, it diminishes the distractions around you. When you choose your purpose and you follow after your purpose, popularity becomes like a sidebar. It becomes a side item. Remember Nehemiah? We studied the book of Nehemiah and studied the character of Nehemiah even just 2 weeks ago. What did Nehemiah do? He built this incredible wall around the city of Jerusalem, and there were some people that came up to him and tried to distract him from finishing the wall. And what did he say? They invited him to the plain of Ono, this kind of beautiful, lush valley where he could hang out and just sip some, fuzzy drinks and kind of hang with some friends, right? They invited him to come join him at the resort, and he says, "Oh no, there's not a chance I'm going down to that." Because of what? He knew what his purpose was. He knew my purpose was to build this wall. I'm not going to go fall into that temptation. No way. I'm not coming down. I've got too great a work to do. What work do you have? What is it in your life that you need to just be reminded of the purpose to keep you from being distracted? Do you know that when I get home these days, I've only been doing this basically since this school year started, because I found myself being incredibly distracted during dinner time. Between 5 o'clock and 7:30, I've been doing this. I've been practicing this. I want to introduce you to the timeout table, okay? Most of you have a timeout chair. I've got a timeout table because I need to put myself in timeout. And not necessarily me, but I need to put my phone in timeout. This little thing right here, I think you can get it at Target for like $7. It's where my phone goes. I come home at 5 o'clock. My phone goes in that little spot. I try my best. I put my phone in timeout from 5 o'clock to 7:30. Why? Because my purpose from 5 o'clock to 7:30 is not to be accessible to all of you. My purpose from 5 o'clock to 7:30 is not to be cranking out on emails. It's not to be, liking things on Facebook. It's not to be reading the news. From 5 o'clock to 7:30, my purpose is to be so engaged with my family. My purpose is to be getting up after the dinner table, cleaning it and doing the dishes. My purpose is to be serving my kids and my wife. From 5 o'clock to 7:30, I've got to fight against the temptation of the distraction. See, purpose diminishes distractions. Some of you have said, like, okay, this is the month. This is the month that we're gonna start getting out of debt, or we're gonna save for an emergency fund. And your purpose diminishes distractions. So what? You start brown bagging a lunch. You start brown bagging lunch. Why? Because you know what the end goal is. You know what you want. Now, some of you have also said, you know what, I want to stay pure in a world filled with lust. Why? Because you want to honor your wife. You want to honor your spouse. And you don't want your eyes to be looking at anybody other than that purpose. Why? Because that is your purpose. Your purpose as a spouse is to honor and cherish your wife or your husband. Why do you step out of conversations at work intentionally? Because when it starts getting to be talking about the lady or that guy over in the cubicle over there, or what's going on in their world, right? When everyone else is talking about coworkers, you step out of that. Why? Because you know that God gave you your words, your expressions to honor Him and to honor other people, not to bring them down with slander. And your purpose drives you. It actually diminishes those distractions. It makes it easier to step out of that. Look back at the mindset of Moses, though. It says he regarded disgrace for the sake of Christ as of greater value than all the treasures of Egypt. His purpose was greater than the value of the greatest treasures of Egypt. I don't know if you remember back in elementary school when you studied like King Tut and all of that, the gold, like how he was buried with all of his treasure. Like Egypt was pretty wealthy. And here is Moses. He's like, no way. No way. My purpose is even greater than any kind of financial gain. My purpose is greater than any social gain. My purpose is greater than anything that the world has to offer. See, purpose, it pushes you through the pain of saying, oh, if I follow my purpose, I might lose out on something. Right? Like if Moses lost out on his reputation, he lost out on some financial inheritance, he lost out on the social status, the parties, all this kind of thing. But for the sake of Christ and the purpose that God put him here on earth for, Moses was willing to do that. His purpose pushed him through his pain. And see, very often, the pathway to your purpose is paved with pain. Very often, you will find that your purpose is found in the midst of pain, in the midst of a painful or hard situation. I mean, look at Moses. His entire life was challenging, and it continued to be challenging. Think about David. David was this young shepherd boy that was one of the last of seven brothers, and right and then all of a sudden he's serving in the king's court, and moments later he's playing the harp and he's kind of calming King Saul down, and moments later, boom, there's spears being thrown at David. Like the king is actually trying to kill him. Think about Nehemiah. Nehemiah was just grieved over the destruction of the temple. Esther watched as her entire people were facing down like a national genocide. Her heart was broken. She had so much pain. Think about Mary. Mary was whispered about, what could that possibly be? It's not Joseph's baby. Like all of these things, she was put into the category of unsavory women. Jesus lived this perfect life, and he ended up hanging on a cross, being executed for his purpose. Guys, my wife Tiffany, if you haven't met her yet, she's way better than me. Go meet her afterwards. But she's a superhero. Like honestly, she is an incredible woman. She truly amazes me. 13 years ago, almost 13 years ago now, we were sitting in a doctor's office, and we got these little pictures up here. That's my son Noah's leg in utero, right? So we were so excited. We were also newly married, which means we were 18. Just kidding. We were about 21, I think. And so Tiffany is 9 months pregnant now. Not when these were taken, but 9 months pregnant, and we're sitting in our family room. And she kind of has this, the labor is coming, and she did the whole Braxton Hicks thing, and now it's okay, this is now getting serious. And so it's Saturday evening, about 7:30, and she says, I think my water broke. And I was like, okay. I think I'm going to go take a shower. I'm not even kidding. And so she was because she's amazing, and she's the kindest woman in the world, she's like, okay. I mean, I knew that I was going to be in the hospital for 2 or 3 days, and I didn't know when my next shower was going to be. It was going to be rough for me, okay? And so I was like, I'm going to go get a shower because I can't be in that hospital all stanky for 2 days, right? So just put that on pause. You just kind of hang out there on the couch. Can I get you something? Do you want some water? I don't know. I don't know what to do in this moment. This was our first kid. And so I said, I'm going to go shower, okay? Well, 20 minutes later, let's be honest, 25, and we get in the car, and we drive to the hospital. We drive to the hospital, and we get in through the emergency room, because this is now an emergency, and she's sitting in the wheelchair. She's knuckles just gripping down on that thing. They wheel her up into labor and delivery. They get her in the bed, and then the nurses do all their thing. The doctor does all his thing, and they go, all right, the baby's coming. And she's like, when do I get my epidural, right? Sign me up right there, right? I got an X on the back. It's ready to go. And the doctor goes, well, Mrs. Gweski, you're actually past the point when you can get an epidural. So you're going to have to do this. Oh, natural. And I was just I'm going to be back here. Right? I was all clean, smelled like Old Spice, right? And this woman, I don't even know. It felt like 4 hours, but it probably was 2 minutes. Boom, this baby is in our hands, right? What? How did this happen? She pushed through this incredible amount of pain. Why? Just track with me. There's a reason. She pushed through that pain because the purpose of that pain was far greater than whatever she had to deal with. Because on the backside of that, look, this is us as babies, right? Like, so that's the biggest baby. And this is my youngest son, Noah, right? 13 years ago, we had the privilege of bringing this baby into the world. And what pushed her through that pain was the purpose of knowing that I would hold this child on the other side. That's what happens. That's the only reason you have more than one child. Like, seriously, like, why do we have more than one, right? Like, you already did it, right? Like, we don't need to do that again. But you do it again because the purpose is unbelievable. Like, I wouldn't give up being a dad for anything in the world. Tiffany wouldn't give up being a mom for anything in the world. She would say, yeah, I would do that willingly again, anytime for my kids. That's why we would say, I would die for my kids. I would literally lay down my life for theirs because we have such a great love for them. When you understand what your purpose is, you're willing to push through any amount of pain. And so when people criticize you for the things that you've got going in your life, when they criticize you for the projects that you're working on, or they're saying, you can't be that kind of a dreamer, like there's no way you're going to build that business, or they start tearing you down for wanting to dig out of debt, or honor your spouse, and you're not going to head off to wherever the other guys are going that weekend. No, your critics can't stop you. The things that they say about you can't prevent you when you are so crystal clear on what your purpose is. Right? You just know that pain won't slow you down. You just get up earlier. You get after it. You work harder. You stay later. Purpose pushes you through the pain. And it did for Moses as well. Look back at Moses. It says Moses regarded disgrace for the sake of Christ as of greater value than the treasures of Egypt because he was looking forward to his reward. He pushed past the distractions and he handled the pain. Why? Because he was certain that his purpose was to please God. Aligning himself with God's calling put Moses in a position to honor God and quite honestly, to please God. Remember what happened with Moses? He went to Pharaoh later on and he said, hey, I want you to let my people go. In fact, God says, let my people go. The entire nation of Israel, all of those slaves that you have. And what happened? About 10 days later at least, maybe a little bit more, Pharaoh says, yeah, get out of here. And an entire nation of slaves walks out of an occupied territory. Moses was crystal clear on his purpose. And he led a nation out of slavery because he was willing to push through the pain. He was so willing. Moses stayed on task. Why? Because the third thing that we understand is that purpose empowers you to please God. When you understand what your purpose is, you are empowered to please God. See, what was Moses' purpose? His purpose in life was to lead people from slavery in Egypt into the promised land, to obey God, the place where God wanted them to thrive. And Moses endured suffering from all sides, from Pharaoh for sure, from the Egyptians for sure, and even from the Israelites. It wasn't easy. There was nothing about his life that was easy. See, even though it was hard, it was worth it. Even though this was maybe the hardest thing that he had ever done, it was going to be worth it. I want to let you in on a little mantra that I have. It's 3 words, very simple, and it's not profound, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. This one's free, by the way. And so it's just this. Do hard things. I keep this in front of me, like all the time. Do hard things. Like at the end of the day, we're meant to be tired because we worked hard. Do hard things. Next weekend, you'll be lucky if I'm standing. You'll be lucky if I'm here. Next weekend, a few other guys and I, we're going to Tampa to participate in this Go Ruck Challenge. Basically, it's kind of a cross between crazy and dumb. We're going to be, it's true, it's totally true. We're starting up in Tampa. We just found out where, and we're going to be starting at 9 p.m. on Friday night and won't finish until 9 a.m. on Saturday, potentially. They're not even going to promise you that. And so we're spending 12 hours in Tampa with a 35 to potentially 45-pound book bag on, walking anywhere from 15 to maybe 20 miles, being pushed to our physical limits by a Special Forces Green Beret cadre. Sign me up! And pay $75 for it too. So listen, y'all need to pray for your pastor, okay? Because next Friday night, I'm going to be doing some of the most, one of the hardest things that I probably could do physically. And why am I doing this? Why? Like, why would I sign up to be tortured like this all night long? Because I need a reminder. I know that I need a reminder that it's not about comfort, that I need to do hard things, that I actually need to push myself. I need the reminder that hard things are okay. I want to push myself to see what I'm capable of, and not even just physically, but also mentally staying in the game. Listen to me. You guys, life isn't just about comfort. Life isn't about figuring out how comfortable can it be for you. Like, it's not about how padded can my house be, how cushy can my job be. Life is actually, it's not even about making it cushy for you and your family. There are times when you've just got to get up and work. There are times in life where you got to get up, and you got to get up before your body wants to. You got to do things your body may say, no, I don't want to do that. And you got to do things that your mind is saying you could never do, and you've just got to do it. No one ever changed the world by taking it easy, okay? Like, it's true. Nobody ever, changed the world. Nobody ever started some incredible movement. Nobody ever ended a genocide. Nobody ever ended some kind of world sickness by saying, you know what, I'll figure it out later. I'll take it easy. Put my feet up. No, there is something about pushing through and doing hard things. So what is God calling you to do? Like, what is one of those things? What's your great purpose? And it may be hard, but purpose pushes you through the difficulties. It pushes you through the pain because it empowers you to please God. Tonight we're launching Hope City Youth Nights. I couldn't be more excited about this. Like, I've lost sleep in these last few weeks because I am so excited about what this is and what this potentially means in the lives of countless teenagers, both the ones we know right now and the ones that we're going to meet later. Because we believe that God wants to have a relationship with an entire generation of students, and that this generation is the most connected generation that has ever existed. So imagine if this next generation was taught how to share their faith and given tools to do that. Imagine what could happen. So we're launching Hope City Youth Nights because we believe that students need a place to explore their faith and to make it their own. But let me tell you, this, quite honestly, has not been an easy task. To get to where we are today, ready to open the doors wide open, this has cost hours of planning and logistics. Both Justin and I and all of our staff team have poured into the launch of this. Liz Taylor, she's designed all of everything that you've seen for youth, Hope City Youth and Youth Nights. Liz has hand-drawn this and worked hard. Why? Because each one of these symbols, these icons, have a purpose. And our students are going to learn about what it means to be for one another. They're going to learn what it means to be so focused that it's all about Jesus. They're going to learn what it means to be for Sarasota. And they're going to learn what it means to be wild and to have fun, right? Like, this is happening around us, and people have poured into this. Tiffany has led a crew of ladies this past week who prepared literally 100 New Here gifts for the students that we're going to meet tonight. We've prepared for them, and we've got a passion because our heart here at Hope City is burdened, and we're just excited about the next generation. But it's had a financial cost for us, right? Like, it's easy to say, we're going to do all these things, but then there's the financial planning and things that come alongside of it, and that's been hard. In order to get where we need to go, we've had to purchase and prepare for people. And we're going to do whatever it takes to make sure that students, that people meet Jesus, even if it's hard. And I believe that doing hard things, that focusing on your purpose, it honestly honors God. Purpose empowers you to please God. Purpose is that thing that wakes you up in the morning. You guys remember in the book of Acts when Peter and the other apostles were preaching about Christ, and the religious leaders kind of hauled them in before the whole council, and they said, you guys got to stop preaching this, shut this down. Remember that these religious leaders were the same ones that crucified Jesus because they were afraid of the movement that he was starting. They were afraid of this radical message of grace and the spread that it would have in their world. But listen to what the apostles said. When they said, you guys need to stop preaching, Peter and the other apostles replied, we must obey God rather than men. They knew something incredibly powerful. They made a decision to follow God's purpose for their life. And that purpose empowered them to please God. You can't please everybody. I can't please everybody. But we can please God. So we have a decision to make today. We've got a decision that to help strip through and kind of strip away some of this white noise. It's this. What are you going to choose? You going to choose chasing popularity? Or are you going to choose chasing after your purpose? See, there's value in being liked by people, but there's even greater value in being loved by God. There's value in having fun with friends, but there is even greater value in being faithful to God. There is a value in comfort, but there is a greater value in calling. Being popular is valuable, for sure, but nothing is as valuable as serving God's purposes here on earth. So listen to me, if you're a mom, if you're a dad and you're at home, you're raising kids, and you've got diapers piling up all around you, kids' toys are everywhere, and the only thing you've been listening to these days is like Baby Shark on repeat, listen to me. Keep your eyes on the prize. Remember that your purpose is to raise kids to love God and love others. If your mailbox is filled with bills and you kind of go out to that and you're like, you reach in and you're like afraid of what you're going to pull out, and you've decided that this is the year that you get out of debt, let me tell you, it's going to take daily sacrifices. But look forward to the reward. Look forward to the fact that you can head off to the mailbox and you can live in financial freedom and honor God with your finances. Or maybe you're fostering a child, or you're thinking about foster care. This very well may be the hardest thing that you will ever do in your life. Your heart may be broken time and time again, but remember, push through the pain. Push through that. Think about the purpose. Think about how you're reflecting their heavenly Father. You may not be their biological father, and nor are you even their legal father, but you're in a position to love them and influence them and shelter them from fear and harm just the way that their heavenly Father wants to. You can't please everyone, but you can please God. Today I'm praying that you and I would take steps towards purpose over popularity. Remember, if you have a pulse, you have a purpose.